Hotep family, Kaba Kamene. We're continuing our series. This is series number 2 of No Distractions. And we're looking at neuromelanin. We're looking at the role of the melanin in the brain, the melanin that activates the thinking processes in the brain. As we spoke about, we have skin melanin, which is the largest organ in our body. And inside of our body, along with that, we have what's known as eumelanin. And eumelanin is the melanin that we find in all of the organs, glands, and parts of our body. Reproductive system, the so-called immune system, all of them. And we're dealing with no distractions. And we're dealing with the power of the brain. There are 3 basic main components to the brain. The earliest one, and the one that we find at the base that connects our torso to our head, is called the brainstem, or the R complex. It's the earliest brain that's in all of us. It is cause for protection of the organism. It's what protects us. Coming up out of the brainstem, we have the limbic system, which is responsible for our feelings. The largest part is what we call the neocortex. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the brain. We'll talk about the importance of understanding the pathways that are created by thinking and by creating neuronal connections. As an African people, our brains, in many ways, have been altered because of our experience. Our brains and the way in which we think, many times we find ourselves attempting to survive as opposed to leading us to higher order thinking skills. Although the way in which we think lead us to higher order thinking skills, but it's according to what it is that we are contemplating, what we're thinking. In understanding cerebrospinal fluid, the power of melanin in the brain, the power of the pyramid builders, the temple builders, the peoples that created the earliest cultures and civilizations and developed phenomenal ways of living peacefully. Getting rid of the ego, getting rid of all those things that we embattle each other over, envy, jealousy, and beginning to think on a higher level of consciousness. As we develop these concepts, we must never leave sight of them, but at the same time, we have to understand in our daily lives today, in 2018, we're facing many things that distract us and take us away from a reality that we really should be looking at as a people. And so today I wanted to talk about the issue of this, whether we stand or kneel or stay in a locker room when the national anthem is played. I remember when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee, brought attention to the mistreatment of African peoples by the society and by the police. And then I remember the distraction, where people began to speak about taking a knee was unpatriotic, it was disrespecting the flag, it was disrespecting those men and women who are in uniform. It was a distraction. It took us off the point. But it began to make us all think something. And I'd like to highlight a work done by a columnist, a retired teacher, and a historian. Phenomenal sister, lives in Buffalo. Her name is Eva M. Doyle. And Eva Doyle wrote a book. I was invited to Buffalo to speak. And in fact, Professor Doyle was the one that invited me. And she wrote this pamphlet, this book, Francis Scott Key and the National Anthem. What does the Star-Spangled Banner mean to blacks? I had a chance to speak to my sister Doyle over that weekend. And I began to think about the distraction and about we as a people, as an African people, just considering and looking at this song. What was this song? I'm not going to say whether you should stand or sit in a locker room or what you should do with this. I just want to present information. And I'd like to let your melanin, your cerebrospinal fluid, your nerve cells, make a decision for you what role this song plays in your life. So what we need to do is we need to examine this song and everything that came around it. First, let's look at Francis Scott Key, the writer of the poem. Remember, he didn't write the song, and I'm going to tell you who wrote the melody to the song and where that came from. Francis Scott Key was born on August 1st, 1779 in Carroll County, Maryland. They owned a plantation called the Terra Rubra. They had 10 children. His parents had 10 children and lived in a 2-story brick home in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. They're enslaved people. They had slaves. Their enslaved Africans were responsible for taking care of the children. Francis Scott Key was an attorney, an author, and a poet. He was famous and is famous for writing the words to the national anthem of the United States, known as the Star-Spangled Banner. Some more things to know about Francis Scott Key. He was a close friend of President Andrew Jackson. He was nominated by Jackson to be District Attorney of the United States in 1833, and he served in this position until 1841. Like his father and grandfather, he enslaved African people. He later became a founding and active member of the American Colonization Society. The goal of the society was to send free blacks back to Africa. As Attorney General, he was in a position to suppress abolitionists. Abolitionists were the people who spoke out against the enslavement of blacks in newspapers and in town hall meetings. Although Key had freed 7 of his enslaved Africans and even had defended free blacks seeking freedom, he made his true feelings known because he actually was freeing them in order to send them back to Africa, believing that it would rid America of its problem. Key spoke of blacks as a menace to white people. In a book titled Snowstorm in August, written by Jefferson Morley, Jefferson Morley quotes this. He says, Key shared a general view of the free people of color that they were a distinct and inferior race of people, which all experience proves to be greatest evil that afflicts a community. In his view, the African colonization would solve the problem of free blacks by helping them to migrate back to Liberia. He fought for this for over 20 years. Now, before we get into the national anthem, I want to talk to you about its origins. The origins of this came because of the Napoleonic Wars. Remember, this is coming at 1812. It's percolating 1810, 1811, 1812 between the British and the French. Because remember now, France is just coming up out of Egypt in the late 1700s, 98, 99, and there are wars going on. And this was a world war. It included not just France and Britain, but all of the sides of each. Everybody that sided with the British, or everyone that sided with the French. And so to enforce this crippling, because remember now, in 1803, 1804, France is going to be hit with the revolution in Haiti. And remember, they're going to have to sell Louisiana. So America is growing now. America is growing as a land. I mean, that Louisiana Purchase gave the United States quite a bit of land. And it had a great impact because of the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River playing such a pertinent role in transportation and communication in the United States. So America was getting themselves together now. And so Britain enforced a naval blockade to block any country doing trade with France. The United States, they said, look, I'm ready to get this going on. We're ready to deal. I'm not interested. So America, or the United States at the time, was open. And so a lot of different things happened. The United States also was trying to encroach on Canada. Remember, Canada is in the hands of the British, except for somewhere in Quebec and places like that where the French are fighting. The French and the British are fighting as it relates to Canada. So its proximity, its closeness to the United States is having an impact. And the United States is fresh out of the Revolutionary War of the 1700s now. See, when you put all this in context and you understand holistic history as opposed to episodic history, you can see how all this is happening now. Things happened June 18th, 1812. James Madison signs the Declaration of War against Britain. This is considered to be the Second War of Independence. And America, the United States, wants to move in on Canada. And so this war is now happening. However, at the same time that this war is happening, the British are offering Africans who are enslaved in the United States freedom. At the same time, the United States is offering Africans their freedom if they fight on their side. And so what's going to begin to happen is that there's going to be an animosity between some of the people of the United States colony, particularly Keys, Francis Scott Key, and Africans. Native Americans also are taking either side, whether they're going to fight on the side of the British or they're going to fight on the side of the United States. And again, Britain is offering Native American peoples, particularly up in the Canada area, their land. Fight for us, we'll support you. And so what happens is that Francis Scott Key decides to write a song. He's sitting and he's watching this war take place. And so, now, family, I want you to keep in mind now, this is the song they want us to sing. Now, I'm not even talking about whether you should stand or sit or kneel or stay in the locker room. I'm saying this song that everybody's talking about, this song was written by a racist with racist views towards Africans. This song is written, of which we normally only sing the first stanza, and sometimes when people push it, they push the second stanza, but nobody reads the third stanza or the fourth stanza. Remember, it's a poem first. And you know what's important to understand is that March 3rd, 1931 is when Herbert Hoover signs this song into law to become our national anthem. But the melody of the song, dun 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 dun, that melody is written by a man by the name of John Stafford. And it is a song that was written, melody, for a social club of Britain called the Anacreontic Society. The melody itself, the song itself, the melody is called To Acreon in Heaven. Let's not get it twisted. This is a bar song. This is a song where people are in bars and they're singing. Listen to the melody and imagine groups of men of European descent in Britain. Dan, da, dan, 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 dan. Da, 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 da. This is a bar song. This is the melody that Francis Scott Key took and placed, superimposed the words of the national anthem over, a bar song, as he was watching battles going on during the War of 1812. He writes this song. You know the first stanza. You know the second stanza. The third stanza vehemently opposed African people, and the fourth stanza demonized Native American peoples. I'll leave the fourth stanza for a later date and for others to analyze. You can download it. You can get the sense of the words. But I just want to read these words to you. And as I read these words to you, I want you to think of the song. These are the words of the third stanza of the national anthem that everybody's talking about, we ought to stand and put our hand over our heart and sing. Now, I'm not saying that for people who feel that this is their song, they can do it. But I'm wondering, as an African people, what are we doing to ourselves when we emulate and honor a song that all the while is putting us down? I'm asking for our neurons to start developing pathways to think about this. So here's the words. Third stanza. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more? Their blood was washed out, their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Francis Scott Key's lyrics here condemn the Africans who dared to join the British cause to escape being enslaved. He declared no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. The important thing to understand about these words is that they were written during the War of 1812. Could you blame any African or Native American who would fight for their freedom? Would you curse them? Well, you know what I want to do? Look, I don't sound like Marvin Gaye at the NBA playoffs. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to just see if we could just put these words. Okay, I'm going to try, okay? So don't harm me because I can't, like, and where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more? Their blood was washed out, their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave. Think about it. Think about singing this song. And the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free. Who's free? And the home of who's brave. So I think when we're thinking and we're trying to move ourselves up to higher order thinking skills, I'm not telling you what to think. I ain't telling you what to do. I just want us as an African people, because I'm in the middle of doing this piece with Malcolm now, the X Factor, and his thoughts and his ideas from all the research I'm doing is just flowing through me. And it's making me think about where do we go from here as a people. And I'm looking at all the distractions, all of our concerns. And I'm saying that what Colin Kaepernick did in his decision to kneel was a rather respectful way of protesting the treatment of peoples of African descent, whether they are by the police or by the society at large. It was a First Amendment right, born in the Constitution. But it appears that the Constitution only applies to certain people, that the rights that the Constitution holds. But then you have to remember when the Constitution was written and who wrote it. They were the great majority of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, enslaved African people. So we have to wonder to ourselves, as this discussion of the national anthem continues, is this a distraction? Whether we kneel or stand or stay in a locker room, is that our song? Are the words that you just heard, are these words in our best interest? Is this our national anthem? Is this what we can stand proud of and sing these songs? And if we only sing certain stanzas and we don't sing others, couldn't they have picked a better song? Because you know, another song that was up for competition at this time for being the national anthem was Lift Every Voice and Sing. That was a nice song. That was a very powerful song. It was a beautiful song. It was a song that held up a heraldic emblem of nature. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. What a phenomenal song. It also had a number of stanzas that spoke wonderfully of the human condition and the power of resilience. So I'm just doing this because I want us to be clear with no distractions as we argue over whether or not we're going to sit and stand. My question is, should this be our national anthem? Forget about whether you stand. Because a national anthem of a country should be something honored by all people. It should be something that all people feel a part of, that it reflects their experience in the country that they are swearing allegiance to. And so I wonder sometimes, family, if we're being distracted from the real issues that we're facing and not realizing something else. The British almost beat the United States because them brothers and sisters that enlisted in the British Army, they was tearing stuff up. They felt their freedom. And they knew if they won, they'd be free. And they would get things that they needed and wanted for themselves and for their family and for their community. But you know what beat out? Do you know why the United States won? Because the enslaved Africans that fought with the United States were even fiercer than the Africans that fought on the side of the British. We are the reason why the United States won the War of 1812. But nobody will tell you that. That's why I'm telling you that. The same is true with our role in the American Revolution. The same is true for our role in the Civil War. The same is true for the Spanish-American War. The same is true for World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, Vietnam, and everything that's going on right up to this very day. It is the presence of the African and African Caribbean soldier, male and female, that is the cause of the winnings of these wars. And we don't even know. We're fighting someone else's war, but no matter who wins, it appears we always lose. And then this national anthem represents us. So family, as we wind this down, I thank you for your support. You've been doing great support for me. And we're moving along very well with our X Factor, the documentary on Malcolm. What would Malcolm X do? Chickens have come home, as you can see. And again, you know, my thing is, I've never told people what to think. Malcolm said it right. Think for yourself. I laid out information. Eva Doyle, Francis Scott Key in the national anthem, What Does the Star-Spangled Banner Mean to Blacks? If you want to get a copy of this, you can always contact her. If you want more information, what I said, and then of course she has the bibliography there. There are 4 different parts to this story, and each one of them was a column in her newspaper up in Buffalo. And so she put all 4 pieces together. She was trying to enlighten the Buffalo community as to this that was going on with Colin Kaepernick. And as I hear now people talking about, oh, okay, you go into the locker room, you know, stay in your room, you know, until it's time to come out. That's what the owners are telling people. And so I guess they expect their their players to stay in the plantation house, the locker room, until the big boys do their thing. You have to ask yourself, family, where are we in 2018 right now? May I ask you, support your scholars. Support those out here doing this work. Just like people pay enormous amounts of money to go see comedians, and they spend all sorts of money to go see entertainers, and they spend money to go to the movies. Your scholars, those who do this work, also are dedicated to bringing something to you. And they deserve your support. All of them do. They're doing phenomenal work. And they could probably, because of their genius, be doing a lot of other things that might be bringing in a whole bunch of money, but they choose to stay with the community because they realize that they are fulfilling the prophecies of Marcus Garvey and Harriet Tubman and Fannie Lou Hamer and Shirley Chisholm, Huey P. Newton, Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey. I could go through the list. William Leo Hansberry, John Henrik Clark, Joseph Ben Jikkonen. We could go through that. But that's our job. Support your scholars. Obata Shaka told me that a poor revolutionary leads a poor revolution. So I ask you for your support. I ask you for your continued support. I thank you and I appreciate. And the more support I get from you, the more support I can give to you. Because it's time that we get this done. And when I go through these distractions and I see these people talking like this and I understand how our brains function, I say, take the best and leave the rest. Get the sense out the nonsense. Keep on trucking. Keep on keeping on. Join the Kemetic Wisdom School. Go to Shock Metaphysics. Go to that school online. Enlist. Some of the greatest scholars will be coming to you, giving you information you're not going to get in most places. But here in this central location, it comes to you. Shock Metaphysics. SHOCKMETAPHYSICS. Go to my website, www.kabakamene.com. Put your email in. You'll get my free e-course on my next book, Spirituality Before Religions. And you'll also get my study guide, 44-page study guide. It's free. And then you'll get information from me periodically that tells you what I'm doing, what our latest work is. But again, as Malcolm told us, think for yourself. Develop for yourself how you see the world and what you're going to choose to do. You make up your mind. Keep on keeping on, family. It ain't over till we win.